I'm going to, because I can't see or hear any of you, if I can just get you to pop quickly into the chat box, just so I know that you can hear me, so that I'm not presenting to myself. That'll be much appreciated. It'd be great to know that everyone's here. Loud and clear from Denim. Awesome. Thank you, mate. I appreciate it. And I hope you will also, Denim. Perfect. So look, everyone that's joined us today, hello from Tokyo. Hey, Anthony, how you doing? And Catherine. Hey, Catherine. So for today, the goal is 7 little known marketing tactics that every CMO needs to implement in 2021. And the goal for today is really like actionable things that you can be doing to help build your brand and to help drive demand. And the genesis of this session is that at Eloquent, at the beginning of every quarter, we do a thing called a stop, start, continue, scale, right? So we go have a look at what processes we should stop, right? What campaigns, what things aren't working for clients, what working on it, what isn't working internally. What should we start? So what are new things on the horizon that we need to start testing, that we need to scale out? What should we continue? And so this is like what's really essentially working well and what we're going to double down on, build out process around. And then what do we scale, right? Like what are those things that we've found that work exponentially well that we can then take and move across our client base? And so going through that process, we find a lot of winners and things that we really like, particular tactics that are working for one that can work for many. And basically today, like we did this process back at the end of December and said, hey, we should actually share this with people, right? Because there's some really interesting insights here about what's working that you can then take and then apply back into your own marketing strategy. So for me, today's going to be successful if you leave with at least 2 or 3 tactics that you can take back and you can implement into your digital marketing plan for 2021. Yeah, so this isn't a theoretical approach. This is highly tactical, tangible things that you can take and execute and implement within your business. In terms of the audience that are here today, we've got a fair few people from B2B, and that which is where our sweet spot is. A lot of people from the IT industry, a lot of people from SaaS, a lot of people in the talent recruitment sector as well. And so what I'm going to do is, in fact, a few fintech and property also. So I'll make sure that I'm trying to give you some relevant examples for that. And then at the end of this, we're going to allow a fair bit of time for questions. In terms of the structure, like there's not a lot of fluff, right? So I'm going to be in the weeds working through tactics. So we're going to do a quick overview of us and just me and why I'm talking. And then we're going to spend most of our time actually rolling through these tactics, how you can start to stack these things together to really drive performance for your business. And then at the end, I'm going to open up for questions. Yeah. So, and I think that's going to be really valuable because if you want to know how these things can work for your product, for your service, for your team, for your business, that's where we can start to dig into that and like give you some customizable ideas as well. So I'm really looking forward to digging in together. Now, in terms of me, so I've had a 20-year career in sales and marketing. I actually started out my career with a big brand advertising agency, McCann Erickson. So I was working, this is 20 odd years ago, right? So it was before Facebook, and before smartphones. And so I was running campaigns like TV campaigns, print campaigns for brands like Microsoft, Xbox, Unilever, Coca-Cola, MasterCard. So like a lot of big brands that I was working with. And then I actually interviewed for a client-side marketing role with one of the big recruitment agencies. And at that interview, they convinced me that I would make a wonderful recruiter. So I actually ended up spending about 6 years working within recruitment, but I spent a lot of that time there launching and then running their advertising and media desk. So it was still very much in that space. And then from there, I moved into, I was one of the first employees at LinkedIn Australia. And so when I was at LinkedIn, it was really exciting. I was there for about 6 years and got to see that growth. But what's going to be relevant for you here today is during that time, I was responsible for helping companies build branding strategies, build acquisition strategies, build marketing strategies, specifically around LinkedIn. And then I was responsible for leading and guiding a team to do that too. And that team had a lot of success. And when I was doing that, one of these pain points that I could see is that businesses were investing heavily in their content budgets on LinkedIn, but actually didn't have a strategy that could really drive performance around that. And that was the genesis of Eloquent. Me and one of my clients at the time, Richard Rowe, then set up Eloquent. And now actually coming up to 4 years, we've run over 800 profitable digital marketing campaigns on behalf of our clients, right? So the things that I'm showing you are tested and proven, and it's that genesis of people wanted B2B and content marketing and strategies, but they actually then needed the support and the skills around that to turn that into a tangible ROI for their business. So loving dad and below average surfer as well. I've been trying for a long time and I'm still no good. With that, let's jump into it. So here's the first strategy or tactic that I wanted to share with you. And I refer to this as the golden thread approach. And what you can do here is I'm going to show you a methodology for combining voice of customer, so what matters to your ideal audience, with sales psychology, what's going to grab their attention and move them to action, and combine those two things, voice of customer and sales psychology, to unlock virtually unlimited campaign ideas, marketing, positioning, branding. And this is a really tactical, tangible framework that you can use. One of the greatest challenges for marketing is actually having your branding and positioning resonates and building that relationship with your audience. One of the hard bits for us as the digital marketing agency coming into a business is often we would pick up their existing branding and positioning and we would roll out campaigns, and then sometimes those campaigns work and sometimes they don't. And so the common element in a campaign that doesn't work is that your audience just didn't care, right? It makes sense. If your audience doesn't care about your branding, your positioning, your content, or your campaign, it's not going to perform the way that you want to. So then how do you solve that, right? How do you have less campaigns that bomb? And because you can spend a lot of time and a lot of money building out these, and campaigns can be anywhere from 3 months to 12 months, and you can have 6-figure media budgets and 7-figure media budgets to see an execution not work. But one of the ways that we've really tried to stop this, and this is actually going to be 2 tips that dovetail into each other, is beginning with voice of customer and doing better research around what matters to your audience. We don't have time today to go fully into voice of customer, but you can see here there's a link to that. We actually did a webinar on this, I think back in December, and this breaks down step by step how you can go capture that voice of customer. There's even some templates in there that you can swipe and deploy inside of your business, and you can watch this one on demand as well. So I would suggest you jump into that. But basically, you can get this voice of customer, and what you're looking for is the pain points of where your audience is right now. You're looking for where they want to be, their desired outcome, their incentives, their motivations. And then you're looking at this journey in the middle in terms of what are their questions, doubts, hesitations as it relates to themselves and as it relates to you and your product, right? And once you've got that really clear map of what they're moving away from, what they're moving towards, and their questions about the journey on how to get there, then you can use that voice of customer and start building that into your content strategy, into your landing pages, into your ads. This is what you're looking at: motivations, goals, and desires. You're looking at their fears and anxieties. You're looking at particular frustrations. You're looking at their objections and any friction as part of the purchasing decision. You're looking at any valuable features and benefits, so things that they're deriving value from in your product, or use cases that you may not have thought about. Compelling events or triggers that actually move them into I'm looking now to buy. How they're making that buying decision, and then their perceptions of you versus your competitor as well. And once you've got that data, an effective way of getting that data is what we call the Dickens approach. And essentially what you should be doing is some combination of your past clients. So people who have churned, right? If you've lost clients, if you've lost opportunities, go back and you want to get some insight from them. This can be qualitative, so conversational, or quantitative, you can research and data. Obviously your present customers, and then looking at your future ideal customers, right? So if you've got an ideal audience persona, you can go out and capture them. I'm getting ahead of myself. qualitative, quantitative. And then once you've got this insight, you can really use it anywhere. Your value prop, your social media, your Google ads, your retargeting, social media landing pages, thank you pages, website, like literally the voice of customer, the insight that you're finding in these places, you can use this anywhere. This isn't the tactic in itself. What I want to show you now is this thing that we're doing to then turn voice of customer into virtually unlimited, compelling ideas for those campaigns and those ads and those emails. So what we do is this is something that we've put together for ourselves. We call it the Wheel of Persuasion. Everyone that's attending, you are going to get a copy of this, so you will be able to come back and have a look here. But once we've done this voice of customer and we have a clear sense of the audience, and then we understand the scenarios in which they might be buying, right? So maybe they're shifting from an incumbent service provider to you, might be a scenario, or maybe they've never purchased this type of thing before. Or maybe they're comparing you against a category alternative, but not a particular competitor, right? So there'll be different scenarios in which someone's buying. And then we look at these different angles around sales psychology and neuromarketing. So people like them, and scarcity, and standing for a social cause, and social proof, and authority. And so you can see really quickly here is if I've got 2 or 3 different motivations under which someone looks at my product, I can then combine those. So let's use a really practical example. Let's say I'm in fact, looking at the people that had signed up for today. So there was I think there was a fintech. And then that fintech was helping people. It was similar to like a Coinbase. So it was helping people do trades. And so what you can then do is say, all right, well, what are my motivations when I'm looking at fintech? And then, one of those might be wealth. Right. And so maybe that's why someone's looking at your fintech product, but then you can start to say, okay, well, how can I use likeness in there as a strategy for wealth building as a motivation? And then you can come up with a few different ideas like that. So you could show them similar people who have used your product who have generated wealth. It might be scarcity. So there might be a certain number of people that can join within a particular time. If you look at, there's a platform growing really rapidly at the moment called Clubhouse. And Clubhouse is a social media platform that's invite only. And it's launched, I don't know, maybe a month, 6 weeks ago. And there's already whispers of it all over the internet. And it's because of this scarcity, right? It's invite only. And that's why it's growing so rapidly. But combining those voice of customer, these things here, with these things here, these different psychological triggers that move people towards action, really this unlocks just unlimited ideas for your campaigns. Yeah. So we all know that we should be split testing. We all know that we should be running different campaigns. Using this methodology lets you identify exactly what works, identify exactly what matters to your audience, and combine it with principles that will move them to action to then build out campaign ideas. And so that's this first thing that I just wanted to show you. This is how we're coming up with all of our different ads for split testing, for emails, for blog ideas. All of these things we're now doing through this lens of voice of customer and sales psychology. It's working really well, because you've got all that, like I said, you know what matters and you know how to move them towards action. The next tactic or strategy, and this is, I guess that first one started more in a branding and awareness space, but now let's work out, again, thinking about branding and positioning. How can you better validate campaigns? And I'm going to call this one the campaign saver. And it's just this simple idea around validating your branding and validating your positioning before you actually build out those content assets. And so let me explain. In fact, there's a few people here today from IT project management. In the project management space and in the software industry, people often talk about the waterfall approach. And so if you've heard of this, it's when you look at a project, you break it down into linear sequential phases. Each one's dependent on the next. And the idea is, if you've ever seen one of these charts, they sort of flow down. Yeah, we're going to have conception, then design, then construction. We're going to deploy the thing that we've built, and then we're going to maintain it. And so this waterfall thinking was really how most things got done when it came to engineering, design, particularly in agile industries like software. And I use that word deliberately. Like most modern marketing campaigns are still built out in the same approach, right? So if you're in the middle of your 2021 planning, you're sitting down and saying, here's what I'm planning to do this year, and here's the 4 different campaigns that I'm going to be rolling out on a quarterly basis. The challenge with this is it can lead to expensive mistakes. If you've ever had a campaign that doesn't resonate with your audience, maybe it hasn't hit your revenue goals, maybe it hasn't hit your awareness tactics, it's because really we were approaching marketing with a waterfall mentality, right? We were building out campaigns, then hoping that people would come. But what you can actually do is, if you've heard software businesses and project managers, it's not even a buzzword anymore, agile. So that agile approach to software development, we've got to take that same approach to our marketing as well, right? And so if I'm doing agile marketing or data-driven marketing, what I'm actually doing is testing and validating different campaign ideas first, and then scaling out the winners, rather than doing it the other way around. The two big evolutions in marketing that really allow us to achieve this, the first is speed of creation. So back when I was first in marketing 20 odd years ago, making TV commercials, you're talking about $400,000-$500,000 just to make the ad, right? It was 400 or 500 grand just to make a TV commercial. And then, a couple of million in media. And so you had to go make the thing and then scale the thing and hope that it works. Whereas now, like with digital, we can test and iterate and make multiple versions of the same thing. So our speed of creation is so much better, but also our speed of data and speed to data, right? How quickly we can validate idea has really turned this around. So what you can actually do is create multiple variants, multiple split tests, and really rapidly gain data a lot faster than before. And so my promise was this was going to be this CMO level tactical type thing. So I want to show you exactly then how you can start to actually combine these two different strategies together, right? So let's say you've done your voice of customer process and you've identified 3 major pain points that your audience wants solved. I'm going to use a different example. Let's say I'm an accounting firm. I work with mid-size business owners, and the major pain points that they might have is their understanding of cash flow, their ability to better forecast into the future and get financial predictability into their business, and maybe it's compliance, right? They want to reduce their risk and the onus of compliance. So this this CEO in this mid-tier company, that's the 3 problems that really they want solved from their accounting practice. Then what that accounting practice could do is create 3 different blogs or 3 pieces of content around each of those pain points. So 3 pieces of content for each of those pain points, total of 9 bits of content, right? And then what you could do is then use that wheel of persuasion essentially to come up with unlimited angles, unlimited ads, whatever you need to, right? So knowing that you can combine the pain points with those different types of ads, you end up with unlimited executions and variants on your positioning. But then what you could do before you do a rebrand, before you invest a lot of money into a campaign, before you put a lot of money behind a media buy, is you could then take those 9 different blogs and you can promote them across your marketing channel right now, right? And so, and a good idea is divvy up $100 or $200 or whatever is relative to your budgets, and actually spend that across each of those, spend an equal amount across those 9 different blogs, and you're going to find the winner, right? So amongst those 9 different pain points, and then amongst those different ways that you address or solve that pain point and talk about it, you're going to find winners in how you talk about your business, right? And once you've found that winner, now you've got this winning variant, and you can look at things like the click-through rate if you're running an impressions campaign. You can look at your cost per acquisition if you're doing an acquisition campaign to bring customers in. But what this means is you can find winning positioning by combining those 2 strategies, and then from there, go roll out your full campaign, right? So you can build out offers, you can build out products. If you're doing thought leadership content, so white papers and webinars and all of those sorts of things. If you're building acquisition funnels and you're training up your sales team on following up leads and landing pages and multiple paid traffic campaigns and social posts, right? Like, it's so much easier to spend the time and money investing in those things if you can test something up front, right? Because now you know that you're building a campaign based on what is most likely to succeed. And that's how you do it, right? So you could do it with different blog ideas, testing the different variants and angles. Or you can really simply do this with ads. So if you can, down here in my second example, you could have 3 major outcomes that your audience is looking for. Come up with 3 different variants against each of those, spend the money on Google, spend the money on advertising, and then roll out that campaign. And so this is, I'm going to go more into executional type tactical stuff now, but I wanted to put those 2 things first because if you think about the success of your marketing, it's how well does it resonate with your audience? And then how do you scale that? How do you put it in front of them? Those first 2 approaches to marketing, combining voice of customer and sales psychology, helps you ideate a lot of things that are potentially going to be of relevance to your audience. And then using that validation process lets you use a data-driven approach to pick the winners. And if you've done that and then you're building business cases internally, it's a lot easier to get the budget to go build this stuff out and then scale it in something that's more significant for your business as well. So now with that out of the way, that branding and positioning, those first 2, next of all, I'm going to go into more of some digital ad units and particular techniques that you can then start to leverage in 2021 that'll work really, really well for your marketing. And so right now I want to show you how you can use LinkedIn to land directly into the inbox of decision makers who have viewed your website, right? And it's combining these 2 little pieces of the LinkedIn puzzle that people don't know about. And as I said, because I'm ex-LinkedIn and still use the platform a lot for our own growth and marketing, and then we're using it for all of our clients. And so it's just let us see this little opportunity that not a lot of people are using. And now I'm going to share it with you. Okay, so first of all, you're probably familiar with the idea of pixels. So Google has a pixel, Facebook has a pixel, a little bit of code, you can put it on the site, and now you know who's visited your site. That's where your Google Analytics come from. And then also you can run ads to those people. So you can show them, if someone's viewed your website, you can show them things as they move around the internet. Less people know that LinkedIn also has their own one of these, and it's called the LinkedIn Insights tag. So the LinkedIn Insights tag is the same thing. You can take that little piece of code and you can put it on your website. There's 2 benefits to this. So the first is that you can actually see more data about the people who are visiting your website, but based on some of the information from LinkedIn, right? So you can see what companies people work at that are coming and viewing your website. You can see their level of seniority. You can see they're sourced from different pieces of LinkedIn content. So it's actually surfacing for you different information than Google or Facebook, right? Because you've got all of that richness of LinkedIn data. So one of it's the insight and data about who's coming to your website. But then the second benefit of it here is you can run campaigns. So much the same as if I've got a Facebook or a Google tag on my website, if I've got the LinkedIn Insights tag on my website, now I can start to do retargeting campaigns on LinkedIn. So we're going to take that Insights tag and we're going to put it onto your website. The next thing that we're going to use that, and people are aware of each of these things individually, but haven't really put it together, the combination of the 2. So the next piece of the puzzle here is LinkedIn in their marketing solution suite. There's an ad unit called LinkedIn Messages. Now, a LinkedIn message as an ad unit is a different thing than sending an email from your personal account. And it's a different thing than sending a message from your own personal account to someone that you're connected with. So this is a marketing unit. And it's an ad unit that was specifically built by LinkedIn for lead generation campaigns, right? And so if your goal is lead gen and customer acquisition, this ad unit was built around this because it lets you land directly into the inbox of people who viewed your website. You can see over here how it's appearing. So here's someone's inbox. This is straight from the screen grabs from the LinkedIn website. And you can see here, it'll appear at the top of their inbox as sponsored. You can include content. you can see a call to action here and a call to action here. And also you can brand up the page here as well, right? So that's what a LinkedIn message campaign looks like. You can send these to anyone, right? So if you wanted to promote an offer to your audience, you could go run one of these LinkedIn message campaigns right now. And like, I do suggest that you test them. But here's the magical combination of the two, right? So if you install the LinkedIn Insights tag onto your website, you create a campaign in LinkedIn to retarget, run ads to people who have visited your website from that LinkedIn Insights tag. And then when you use your ad unit type, not as content or videos, but actually as a direct message, what you end up with is this super powerful campaign, right? You are delivering a branded direct response message directly into the top of the LinkedIn inbox from people who have viewed your website, or even people who have viewed specific pages in your website, And I've got down here a little pro tip. You need enough pro tip and some details that with LinkedIn, you need a minimum audience size of 1,000 people to run a campaign to them. So you just need to make sure that you've got enough traffic coming to your website to make this work. So more than 1,000 people a month. If you don't yet, you'll like some of the next strategies I'm going to show you. But if you've got enough website traffic, so let's say that you're anywhere north of probably 10, 20,000 people a month, unique visitors, then you've probably got enough traffic to start doing this sort of strategy at a page level. And what I mean is, if you've got a high intent page on your website, your pricing tab, your for clients tab, your how to work with us tab, there'll be a page on your website that shows that someone is disproportionately likely to purchase from you. If that page has enough traffic that you can run retargeting, you're left with something that's then really super powerful, right? Because now you can run ads to people who have been to the pricing tab on your website. So you know that that person was quite far down on the buyer journey. And now you can use an ad unit type like this to then launch a conversation with that person. It integrates really well if you've got, if you're a marketer and you're working in an account-based marketing framework and you need to feed leads to your sales team, then this is a phenomenal ad unit that I'd really suggest you try. So that was that unit. You can use the LinkedIn Insights tag combined with remarketing to land directly in the inbox of people. I love this tactic. And the reason that I love it is just because it helps turn those browsers into buyers in this really straight line. And that's why I love it. So now we've gone through voice of customer and combined with sales psychology to come up with a lot of ideas. We've then gone through how to validate those different ideas using data to find your campaign winners. Then what you can do is set up something like that LinkedIn Insights tag and remarketing campaign, meaning that when people are landing on your website, now you're better able to put a direct response call to action in them. Now it's like, how do we get more people there, right? How do we run ads and pick up traffic for more in-market buyers? I need to come up with better names for this. If you ever see this webinar like 6 months or 12 months from now, I'll have a better name than Competition Hoover. But it's a pretty good name because this is what it does, right? You can put your marketing message, your offers, that content directly into the eyes of your largest competitors. The idea is that you can hoover up all of the traffic of people going to their website and put your offer in front of them. And now I'm going to show you how to do that, right? So we've talked about retargeting, and you're all aware that we can run ads on the Google display network to people that have viewed your site. So we've talked a bit about that. Just as a quick distinction, within Google, there's Google search. So Google search is, I go into Google, search for something, some ads appear at the top. What we're talking about here is Google display network. And so I'm targeting an audience not based on their behavior, but I'm running ads to them as they move around the internet. I should have put an example here, but if you go to the top of the Australian Financial Review and look at the banner on the top, that is 9 times out of 10 when you're there, that's a Google display network ad. So the idea here is that we can see what someone's doing based on their behavior around the internet, and we can run ads to them. So there's search and display, and here we're talking about a display marketing tactic. Now, we know that we can run display and retargeting for our own websites. Yeah, we've all seen ads as we move around the internet. We're all, even if you don't have it on, you're aware that you can run ads to people who have seen your site. But what a lot of people do not know is that tucked away in the Google audience settings, there's a particular option called Google Custom Audiences. Now, I'm going to talk about some of the detail down here, but inside of Google Custom Audiences, there's an extension, and that allows you to specifically target visitors to other particular websites. Yeah. And so Google, when they built out this custom audience, they particularly said this audience targeting option is built with performance marketers in mind, right? This is for people that want to find people in market. Let me tell you exactly what you can do with this, right? So you can, let's say that I'm that accounting firm. So let's say I'm a top 10 accounting firm. I can then go and give Google the websites of the 20 or 50 other top accounting firms and say, I want to run ads across the Google Display Network to people that have viewed those websites. And so if you think about how powerful that is, what you're able to do is specifically run ads to people who are looking at your competitors' websites, right? And so now what you can do is you can hoover up all of that traffic that's been looking at your competitors and start to put that audience in front of your website, in front of your offer. I'm going to put some more detail here because I used to talk about this a lot. And then back in September, Google, essentially they changed it, but it still does exactly what I just said. In September, they combined customer affinity and customer intent audiences into a single type. What it means is now is if I put those 50 different websites in there, it will run ads to people who have looked at those 50, but also potentially it will show ads to people who have looked at websites like those 50. It just means that you want to have a robust level of information in there. Don't try this with one small competitor. You want to have in enough big competitors that there's a volume of traffic, just so Google can find that audience and run ads to them. Otherwise, Google tries to be helpful and then finds other similar accounting practices, using my example from before, but it's just a little tweak in the information I wanted to share. So how do you do this, right? How can you roll out this campaign to then hoover up all of your competitors' traffic and put it in front of yourself? So the first thing that you do is you create a list of websites where your in-market buyers for your solution will potentially be visiting as part of their buyer journey. Yeah. I would say think creatively. So I use competitors because that's the most obvious example. And also for a lot of us, it's the most exciting example. We like the idea of being able to advertise to our competitors' website traffic. I would also say that review websites, comparison websites, informational websites are also really excellent places where I can identify people a little bit earlier in their buyer journey. So for example, let's say that I'm selling I sell insurance, right? And insurance has is one of the most competitive segments in Google for ad strategies. So I might say I'm not going to compete on Google Ads where I'm going to be paying $150 a click or more. But instead, what I'm going to do is look at websites where people compare insurance products. I'm going to look at websites where people review insurance products. And then I want to run ads to people who have viewed those websites. So what it lets you do is now, rather than paying this really expensive, like red ocean, $150 a click over here in the insurance industry, now I can still put ads in front of those people as they move around the web, but like at I don't know, a 1/100th of the price point that I was just looking at over in this example, right? So you can find people both from your competitors, but also early in the buyer journey as they're making decisions, and then help them make that decision by inserting your product in there. So using this ad unit, Google custom intent audiences, really, really powerful. Other ways that you can use this, and we've used this successfully, is retargeting the traffic of professional bodies, industry associations, educational bodies, conferences and events. If within your industry vertical, there's a particular software platform that people all tend to use. So maybe if you're targeting people in interior design and they're all using CAD, right? Like you could target people who are visiting different CAD websites and CAD forums, right? So there are clever ways that you can use this strategy to identify your audience. And it's just as easy as building out that big list. uploading that into Google as that custom affinity audience. And then you can run those launch that campaign, save that audience there. And then you can run those campaigns to that display network, but it's going to be hyper targeted and it's going to be putting your message exactly in front of the people that you want. And I'm sort of building a bit of a business case here for you. If you followed those steps before, now you're going to be running the content and the offers that are the most likely to succeed, right? Like, you know that person is likely to be responding and clicking those ads that you're putting in front of them if you've done these previous steps, yeah? And so as my little pro tip here, right? This strategy, it stacks with that LinkedIn Insights tag to direct message campaign, yeah? So if you're doing something like this, running ads to your competitors' website traffic to get them back onto your website, and then you've got that clever LinkedIn ad unit. So once they've been to your website, now you're landing in their inbox with that offer of a conversation. It's super powerful, right? So you can go out, get your audience, bring them to you, and then use that LinkedIn to put a direct call to action in front of them. It's a really nice stack. And so using this here helps you put volume through that strategy and get a lot of people through. I feel like I'm moving pretty well. I felt like I was moving quick, but we're 40 minutes in already. So I'm probably right on time, if not a little bit behind. So the next strategy that I'm going to teach you, it's so hard doing these webinars when I can't see you all. So I hope that you're there and you're loving it and I'm not droning. I can see that there's more participants than when I started. So that's good news, right? There's more people here than when I started, not less. So hopefully you're finding this interesting. Let's talk about YouTube, right? And particularly combining YouTube with those Google affinity audiences that we just looked at as a tactic. So first of all, let's talk about YouTube, right? YouTube has enormous reach. It's the world's second largest search engine. And in 2020, there was an average of 1 billion video views on mobile, just on mobile, so not desktop, 1 billion video views on mobile per day. Right? So there is immense volumes of traffic going through YouTube. And also in terms of the way that you can target on there, you can be hyper specific in front of the audience that you can go to. And put really simply, YouTube is owned by Google. You can target your audience based on what Google knows. Google knows a lot, right? Anything that Google knows, you can start to bring that into your YouTube targeting strategy. The other thing that we're really seeing is that it's really cost-effective ad units. I think that, like, this is my opinion, there's a barrier to entry around around creating a decent video ad. You need a decent video ad to run YouTube campaigns. And the lack of that video ad is keeping the majority of your competitors out. But consequently, that's keeping your cost per click, your cost per view, your cost per 1,000 views, your cost per acquisition. It's keeping those numbers really low. And then the fourth reason that I really like YouTube is it's a highly persuasive medium, right? So video ads let you convey a lot of complex information within a really compressed time frame. So when you imagine a typical ad, right? Let's say I'm retargeting on display and I've got a 300 by 250 square. Like I can only put a tiny bit of information in there. If I'm running ads on Facebook, right? Like often there's a minimum amount. Sorry, you're not allowed. There's a maximum amount of text allowed in the ad unit. They want to keep things visual. So again, right? Like you can only convey these really short bits of information, whereas something like YouTube, it's highly visual, it's highly persuasive, and you can get across more complex information, right? Like the type of stuff we're talking about now versus a one sentence strapline, right? And so then inside of YouTube, there's multiple different types of ad units. You can do things like short, non-skippable ones that they call pre-roll. So you can have an ad that just appears to people before something that's quite quick. They're great from a brand perspective. Because today, again, I think I said before, a lot of people are focusing on then how do I turn brand into demand? How do I move people from, having a preference for us to customers? And that's why I'm going to talk about this particular ad unit type. It's called the YouTube video ad, funnily enough, but they used to have a lot of other names. They've all just been simplified recently, again, in the last 3 months. So it used to be called an in-stream video ad. And then, what that means is that that ad's going to appear before a video. So it's going to play it before someone starts watching the thing that they've searched for. It's going to appear what they call midstream, so during it or mid-roll, and then post-roll, it's going to show them that video whenever they're finished watching the end of their thing. You set it up as a skippable campaign because ads can be skippable or not skippable. You actually want it to be skippable. Here's why. If it's not skippable, you're going to pay per impression, like each person, because you're forcing someone to watch it. If it's skippable, there's then this thing down here called YouTube TrueView, right? And what that means is YouTube will only charge you for someone who has watched more than 30 seconds of that ad, right? And so if you're like me, I'm like, well, wow, like, first of all, 30 seconds lets me convey a fair bit of information, but more particularly, it lets me skew people. It lets me help people screen themselves out, right? And so if you're building a smart creative execution on YouTube, where essentially you call out your audience, and you call out the problem that you're going to solve for them in that first 30 seconds. If they're not part of that audience, they're going to skip, right? They'll move on pretty quickly. And so like we ran YouTube TrueView ads for this session today, right? And it was me here and this exact stream set up, and I'm pretty sure the same shirt, just saying, hey, are you a CMO or marketer? If you are, and you're looking at your marketing plan for 2021, you're going to be really interested in these tactics that are working in our agency right now. So that, I don't know, I just spoke for about 6 seconds, but you can see there instantly I've called out the audience and I've called out the problem that I'm solving for them. If they don't, if the ad is not for them, they're going to skip it and I'm not going to pay, right? So there's a way, if you're using those YouTube video ads and you're setting up your ads where only people who are really likely to watch it are watching it, and you're only paying for those, and because there's this high bar of entry, it's harder to make a video ad. So it's a blue ocean as distinct to a red ocean. There's less competition. You can get such good results over there in YouTube versus other platforms. And also, as a little insight, not all platforms classify a view of a video the same. So on Facebook and on LinkedIn, generally it's like 3 seconds or 5 seconds that they will say counts as a view, and you're paying for that, right? You might be paying $1 for someone to watch something for 7 seconds and move on with their lives. Whereas on YouTube, you can be paying 7 cents to 15 cents for someone to watch over 30 seconds. And if I've watched over 30 seconds, maybe I'm going to watch 3 minutes. So YouTube is working really well, right? It's a really effective strategy. And you didn't realize it, but now we're up to step number 5, and we've actually built this super effective stack for you that you could go out and deploy for your business this year. All of these things that I've just worked through, they all work individually on their own, but you can combine them, right? So voice of customer combined with sales psychology gives you campaign ideas more likely to resonate. Yeah. You can then take those campaign ideas and validate them to find within that subset your winners, right? And you know to a predictive level what your top of funnel metrics are going to be, what you're going to be paying for a view or a click. Then you can go use this Google intent audiences to not just put this content in front of anyone. You can go put these campaigns and these ideas in front of in-market buyers, right? People who are already looking at your competitors and already reviewing their alternatives and their options in this really cost-effective manner, right? And because Google owns YouTube, you could use these Google intent audiences in something like a YouTube ad that I just spoke about to put your resonating audience in front of someone and only pay if they're watching enough of it to make it make sense for you. Then they're inside of that YouTube ad, in that skippable video ad. You can put calls to action, links to your website, all of those sorts of things. And then when they're visiting your website to look at those things and see that content and see that offers, now you've stacked it with this LinkedIn Insights tag retargeting campaign. So you can then put a call to action in front of the person that viewed it. Like, this is a super powerful stack once you put it all together. Yeah. So I really like it. And that's why I structured these ideas in the order that I've just showed you, because I wanted to show you how they could fit together, really to give you like a wildly successful year. So let's say you're doing those things, and then maybe you've got a considered buying purchase, and that, people aren't just going to watch that video and buy, and there's some considered purchasing process, right? So, and that means that you're probably doing a lot of email marketing. So now I want to show you then a couple of quick, I've cheated here because I had two that I wanted to show you. So number 6 is some email marketing hacks, but I put 2 strategies in there. And I'm going to go through these pretty quickly just to allow for time. Forgive me if I go too much into the data. I want to show you the maths, but if the maths bores you, just pay attention to the outcome. If I sent 10,000 emails, MailChimp says from their aggregated data, roughly 20% of people are going to open them, right? So I've got 2,000 opens. And then MailChimp tells us that roughly I'm going to get a 3% click-through rate or a 15% click-to-open rate. The only difference with those, click-through rate, I'm looking at how many people from the 10,000 clicked the link in there. Click to open rate, I'm looking at how many, 15% of these people. It's the same number. It can just be used to help you find slightly different insights. But this is what the average math should look like, right? So let's say I'm sending a white paper to my database. I've got 10,000 people there. My sales reps are going to follow up those 300 people that downloaded it, or they're going to be added onto a marketing automation sequence, right? I send it to 10,000, 2,000 are going to open it, 300 are going to download it, right? So that's what an average looking campaign should look like in the B2B space. Now, what we do when we send out email campaigns, just because we can split test things, and this is where the data is going to get a little bit confusing. So we do a 10, 10, 80, and then it did not click. So we come up with headline A and body copy A, headline A, body copy B, headline B, body copy A, headline B, body copy B, right? So we're testing the first headline with 10% of our audience. And then we're testing the body copy of the email, 2 different variants with 10% of our audience. So 10% we're testing the headline, 10% we're testing the body copy. And if I had 10,000, that would mean that I've sent 2,000 of my emails. What this is showing you is, let's say my first headline has a 25% open rate, but my second headline has only has a 15% open rate. Both of those are really like normal numbers to achieve, and also they average out to the average 20%. Yeah, so maybe one of my email headlines has 25, maybe one of them has 15, and then same for my body copy. Let's say the first version of my body copy, when people read it, 10% of people click, but let's say with the second version of my body copy, 20% click. Right. So what this lets me do is, if I do split testing on 2 versions of my headline, 2 versions of my body copy, actually then I find this winner that gets opened at 25%, right? So it just gets opened at a little bit above, and then gets clicked at 20%, right? Gets or a total click-through rate of 5, or 20% of the people that open click to open rate of 20%, right? And so this is very much within the, like, we sort of average 30 to 40% plus on open rates and high click rates, just depending on the client and the list, right? So these are very, very achievable numbers. But just by doing that little split test, now we've got a winning body copy. We've got a lot more people that download the thing. The next thing that we do is email everyone that didn't open or didn't click it with a follow-up email, just using a different headline a few days later. That performs just as well as the first ones. If they didn't open it, that headline just didn't resonate with them. So here I've just assumed that that second follow-up email performs average. So to show you up here, it's a bit more work for sure. Here I sent 10,000 emails and I got 300 downloads. The bit to pay attention to is, following that approach, if you did the 10, 10, 80 or 20%, 80 did not close, I've got 746 downloads. Yeah. And so if that maths was really confusing, which it probably was because I didn't explain it well, the takeaway is this: average campaign versus doing that split testing and sending it to the did not contact more than doubled the impact of my campaign. And so if you've just spent 30 grand building out a high-end thought leadership white paper, because you're a mid-tier firm, like there is a massive difference in the ROI of your campaign by doing the testing right. Just doing that little, and usually people are tired by the time they've got to that point in their campaign, or they didn't have the variance, or they weren't set up for split testing, and so they didn't do that test. But I promise, right, just getting the email sequence right at the end of that thing and routinely does more than double the value of the whole campaign. And if you're a marketing manager working partner with your sales team, and they're going to get 300 leads or 746 leads, like that makes a massive difference to your business, right? So split test your headlines and your body copy, because it all flows downstream. The one other trick that I'm going to show you here when it comes to email marketing is around list segmentation. So most email CRMs allow us to tag people in their CRMs based on their behavior, such as a particular action that someone's taken on the website or a particular piece of content that someone's clicked. If you're doing a regular newsletter to your database, what I would love you to do is just start to lay it out something like this. So you'll have this header at the top of your newsletter that's going out. When you send out that newsletter, have 3 bits of content visible. The first that we've got down here, over it should be on their left-hand side of the page, should be decision stage content, right? Content for someone that's probably in the market. The thing in the middle should be consideration stage content, something for someone that's looking at buying, but they haven't chosen between your solution and others. And then awareness stage content, some industry news. And I put that over on the right because people read from that left to right, and you want your decision stage content first. If you're structuring your emails like this, decision, consideration, awareness in your newsletter, and you're turning on click segmentation, what you then know is when you're sending out your emails, you know where that person is in their buyer journey, just simply based off what thing they clicked out of those 3, right? It's just a really nice, clean way of segmenting your list. And then if you're working with your sales team, what you can simply do again, right, is if lots of people pressed that decision stage piece of content, right, pass those leads onto the sales team to follow up, all right? Or if you're using proper marketing automation platforms, you can use lead scoring to automatically have those people bubble up as someone that your audience is going to pick up the phone to. And then my last one, time-based lead magnet, number 7, is using a time-based lead magnet. So I'll just, for some reason, this page is not loading. I don't know why that's happening. Let's talk about it while we wait. So a time-based, as marketers, you'll be familiar with the idea of a lead magnet. And so that's an opt-in in exchange for someone's contact details, giving them a chunk of value. And so, that usually takes the form of a white paper or some sort of downloadable or a diagnostic or whatever that looks like. Reload. I don't know. There you go. Hopefully you can still see this page here. So people are then going to this different downloadable or diagnostic. And there's all different types of those. Yeah. So you can have information, and you can have events, and you can have webinars, and all of these types of different things. And we've tested a lot of them. One of our particular favorites, and so this is just like the little hack or piece of advice that's working for us, is for your lead magnets, consider a time-based lead magnet, an offer of time. And here's why. The methodology of running traffic to an ebook and then following up with the ebook downloaders, that's sort of been built out by enterprise software companies where they've got 2 things. One, that they've got a lot of budgets to run traffic to that ebook. And then 2, they've usually got an inside sales team or a sales development team responsible for following up the people that downloaded that thing, and not calling them once, calling them 20 times, right? So that whole inbound methodology and lead magnet, a lot of it's built on this assumption that you've got the infrastructure to follow those leads up. A lot of us don't, right? Like they don't have big inside sales teams. And I know inside of Eloquent, like it's me or Rich or Shannon, like there's a couple of people who are picking up the phone. It's not a team of 50 who are responsible for that sort of growth in sales, right? And so like, I'm just not going to call the 500 people. I'm certainly not going to call the 500 of them the 10 to 12 times that I probably need to likely convert them into a conversation. Instead, make your lead magnet an offer of time, right? A trial, a live demo, a consultation, a strategy session, an audit, an assessment, a review. The main benefit to this is, one, if you're imagining the conversion rate of your funnel, when people are opting into something, they're opting into a conversation. So you're skipping a chunk. You don't need them to go from lead magnet to conversation. You're going straight to conversation. The second benefit here is that it then allows you to essentially sell like a doctor. So if the time-based lead magnet is usually helping them better understand their problem or giving them a framework for understanding their problem, then what you can do in this session is essentially sell like a doctor at the end. So, and what I mean by that is, if you go to the doctor, they don't, they ask you all about your symptoms, and then they prescribe a solution at the end, and then you just go do it, right? Like, you do what the doctor says. And this strategy is much the same way. So you sit down, you go through their problem, and help solve it for them, right? Give them a diagnostic and say, well, based on your challenge and based on my expertise, here's the process that you need, or here's how you need to think about it, and here's the big 3 things that you need to do. But I would suggest that you use an expert to do those things, and let me tell you about ourselves, right? So that's how you can turn a time-based lead magnet with that audit or assessment into a sales conversation in a really non-sleazy and effective manner, particularly if you don't have a big sales infrastructure. And so if you're watching this and you're in a smaller business and there's only a couple of people responsible for sales, or maybe it's just you, time-based lead magnet is then like my best recommendation there. Just as a little bonus tip, and I'm running out of time, but using that LinkedIn events function. So LinkedIn's added in the events function. We're finding that really successful now. This is just not lots of people know that it's there. If you probably found yourself at today's event or at today's webinar because of this. I log into LinkedIn, I scroll down the right-hand side, events, I hit plus, and I can create an event. Once I've got that event, then I can start inviting people to it. And you can put in there the link to register for your webinar. So we're finding that just a really nice way to then take some of our various LinkedIn audiences and then move them over and share information with them in a different place as well. Now, I've just gone through a lot and also run out of time in terms of the allocated hour, but I've got as much time as you need as well. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just opening up, and I would love to hear in the chat box any questions that you've got. And I've got one there already, one from Rich. How do you avoid, he uses rubbish leads. How do you avoid spending a lot of time speaking to people who aren't qualified when you're using that time-based lead magnet approach? There's different things you can do. So first of all, if the ads that you're running, so the people that you're targeting, help you get in front of the right person, that helps alleviate some of that. Second, if your offer of time is for a problem that is specific to bigger sizes of companies or specific to your ideal client, that'll help. And then the third is that you can actually screen people by putting little questionnaires, right? So for a couple of in fact, we may have one here. I'm going to put here just in case anyone's got to leave, but they want to get in contact. So we actually, as part of our calls to action, will have a couple of questions for people to qualify for a conversation for time-based lead magnets. So we'll ask them a few questions, and if they do qualify, then they can book into them. And then if they don't, then they get sent to another place that they can then go have that conversation. Do I have anything else in the Q&A? I'm just hitting the Q&A button here. Q&A. So a question here from Stephanie. I've got one from Guy. Loving it, Sean. Thanks, Guy. So we've got a question here from Stephanie. So what if our audience don't have LinkedIn? And if you want to ask questions, you can see the Q&A down the bottom, so you can go pop things in there and I'll happily answer. You won't be able to see the slides right now, but and I'll send them through and share them afterwards. But yeah, if your audience doesn't have LinkedIn, a lot of the people we're talking about are B2B, and so they will. For that pixel strategy, it won't work there, but you can still do the same with Google, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, you can still run those campaigns there to get in front of people as well. I can see a few people there. I'm going to share our screen here just for people who want to get in touch, because if you've seen this and said, hey, like I want a bunch of these tactics. So the first thing that I'd say is we have our very own time-based lead magnet, right? So if you're thinking about some of these campaign strategies and how you can take them and apply them to your business, just hit this link here and we'll email it through to people afterwards. But you can apply, right, for a 1-hour marketing consultation, and it'll be me and or some of the team, and we'll get on the phone or Zoom with you. We'll learn a bit about your business. We'll break out what some of these campaigns look like for you and a bunch of others, right? Like today, I've just shown you some of the ones that we test, not everything, obviously. So that's our own time-based lead magnet if you wanted a conversation. If you're interested more in learning a bit more about this stuff, but maybe not ready to speak, like I'd really suggest Shannon and Georgina in our team last month did a phenomenal webinar around voice of customer. You can hit that link there and watch that whole thing on demand. If you think about what I just went through, getting voice of customer right was foundational to everything else in those flow of different tactics and ideas. So definitely you can go check that out as well. Or you can visit us on eloquent.com.au, Sean at eloquent.com.au, or you can call us 1300-265-233. And just doing a last recap, if I can go backwards here on these slides now that I've hit the end. Those are the 7 tactics that you can take and then you can roll out for your marketing. So number 1, combine voice of customer with sales psychology to unlock different branding and positioning ideas for your business that are really likely to resonate. Number 2, use data to validate those different ideas before you roll out major campaigns to save yourself a lot of time and money and improve your likelihood of success. Number 3, pick up that LinkedIn Insights tag to then set up remarketing campaigns. So that way you can land in the inbox of people who are viewing your website with a direct call to action to help them move to conversion. 4, use those Google custom audiences and affinity audiences to find people who are in market in a really creative way. 5, YouTube TrueView video ads are really effective in getting complex value propositions in front of your audience, and that stacks with that Google targeting. So it's a really nice 2 tactics to use. Number 6, if you're better leveraging split testing and segmentation in your email campaigns, you will routinely more than double the value of a campaign, especially if you're doing a lot of marketing to a big list. Number 7, use time-based lead magnets as that call to action. It really helps you have valuable conversations with your audience and gets you into more profitable conversations. And yeah, that bonus tip, LinkedIn events, it's only rolled out relatively recently. It's about 2 or 3 months old. It hasn't been saturated yet by any means. We're getting really high response rates from it. They're really easy to set up. You just hit that button that I showed you and follow that process. So you should be doing that. So that is the 7 tactics that really, if you're and hopefully I haven't gone too into the weeds here today, but I did say it was definitely going to be this more sort of CMO level experienced marketer type content, because I know that what matters to you then is some of these in-depth, how do you actually execute on these ideas? And that's what we wanted to show you today. So look, I'm super grateful for your time. I can see 2 more notes here in the Q&A. No, it looks like they're old ones. All great feedback in the side there. We've got the links. Amazing. We'll be sending this recording out to everyone that's attended today. So like, I really appreciate your time. I'm really grateful. I hope that you found it useful. And again, there's our contact details if you'd like to have a conversation about anything marketing related, or potentially if you wanted to then learn how you could apply these strategies into your business. Looking forward to a great 2021. Thanks everyone for your time.